Hey everyone, Jake Newton here with CPPS. Today's topic, I'm talking a little bit about generating organizational support when you're building out your violence prevention and intervention program. So there's 4 things I want to talk through with you, starting with number 1. Identifying clearly what the problem is, as well as the solution. So pretty basic one here, but one of the things I've always thought is that it's always great to, yes, identify what the problem is, but if you can also bring forth a solution, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to get buy-in for what you're trying to accomplish. So articulating both of those things, what it's going to solve, the benefits it's going to bring, is going to help set you up for success. And there's a lot of different resources out there that can help do that. I mean, you need to look no further, for example, than the different impacts on organizations that these kinds of events can have, especially when we talk about extreme violence, looking at the number of cases that society is seeing, the fact that it can happen anywhere. There's really nowhere that's immune to these kinds of things anymore. So recognizing that it's not just an organizational issue, potentially, but recognizing this is a societal problem, and as our part in society, here's exactly what we can do to address that problem. So identifying both of those things. Number 2 is understanding what your organization's priorities are. So every single year, every organization has the things that they're trying to accomplish and prioritize throughout the year, whether good or bad. Sometimes we have to plan for example, a downsizing of the organization. Well, if you know something like that is going to be coming down the pike, then you can plan for that and say, hey, we don't currently have a violence prevention program in place, but this is something we could really benefit from, because that'll help set us up for success when we have to do, a bunch of separations of employment or whatever that might be. On the beneficial side, it could also be the same exact thing. We're looking to grow as an organization, and with a growth in the organization comes potential exposure. Whatever the reason might be, look at what the organizational priorities are and then tailor what this is going to look like and how it applies to those organizational priorities. Ultimately, this program is going to have a strong benefit for an organization regardless, because we're talking about individual safety and security when you really boil it down to brass tacks. But really showing what that looks like for the organization, the kind of benefit it can bring to the overall institution, can really help generate some of that support. Number 3, proposing a holistic solution as opposed to perhaps just a component of a solution. In this space, here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. When we have the opportunity to work with organizations, we often hear that they'll implement, for example, active assailant training, which is great. That's a wonderful start. But that's just one component of a collective workplace violence prevention and intervention program, or an active assailant preparedness program. There's a lot of other things that we can include within this process that can really help round it out. And one of the things that we've noticed when working with organizations, and particularly when we have the opportunity to engage with organizational leadership, is when we draw the picture of what a comprehensive program looks like, and beyond that, actually benchmark it to prevailing standards, or even other organizations of the industry, that tends to generate a lot of support and a lot of beneficial feedback from organizations. And so what we do is we lay out the full picture. Look at the organization. What does the program need? Starting off maybe with an assessment, or at some point down the road, performing an assessment to really identify that. Building out the plans, the policies, and the procedures that really undergird the program. And then talking about those various layers of training so that every level in the organization is adequately prepared to handle these kinds of organizations, know what to look for, know how to respond, know who to report to, and creating that organizational awareness so that we can ultimately have a culture that is really focused on prevention. Because one of the things that we love to focus on for violence prevention programs is that prevention piece, but looking at that entire spectrum can really be helpful and impactful when we're talking to organizational leadership. So ultimately, one of the things that we like to say for folks is we're really looking to make folks mindful, not fearful. And we've actually even had some organizations we've worked with where they're like, oh, I really like that tagline, because that's exactly right. We don't want people to be concerned or be more stressed out about this topic. It really can be a strong benefit to an organization, and it just takes unpacking that full process for the leadership. And it can really help mitigate a lot of those concerns about, well, we're going to scare people. Well, when we look at that full picture, we can really see just how beneficial something like this can be. So the last one, number 4, is using outside expertise or resources to help generate that support. So a really basic component of this is using an organization, a consulting firm such as CPPS, to help come in and talk about these concepts. There's that adage where a prophet is well known in his own town. And sometimes that's the case here, where you've been trying to campaign this message and say all of these different things, and you're saying all of the right things, and then somebody comes in from the outside and says the same exact thing, and then it's a light bulb moment or an aha moment. Sometimes that's just what it takes. So if you can get that little bit of buy-in to even get something like that, maybe that's what it takes. But there's also a lot of other things that can really be used for this as well. For example, statistics of how this is impacting society. Maybe looking at historical cases that went to litigation and the impact that those have had on an organization, the impact it has on the local communities, studies that have been performed in this space to talk about how it impacts people. There's a lot of really great resources out there. And when you start drawing on these different things, not only does it really create a larger context for this, but it also doesn't make it necessarily so subjective either. It's really we're looking at a myriad of perspective here and getting a full picture of what we can really do about this and how we can go about it, so that ultimately it leads to success. Success for the organization is success for the individuals, and vice versa. And that's ultimately what this is all about. So doing those 4 things: identifying the problem and solution, knowing what the organizational priorities are, providing a holistic solution, and then really leveraging those outside resources that are available, are just a few ways that you might be able to generate that support. But if you have any further questions, always feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you. But for now, CPPS signing off. Thanks.